Welcome to Bookish Dives. I am so excited to be kicking this off. Diving deep into the books that are on your reading list, that stack of titles that you've been meaning to get to.
Yeah.
Well, consider us your shortcut to unlocking all those golden nuggets of knowledge.
It's like a personalized book club experience.
Exactly.
Tailored specifically.
And for our very first deep dive,
to your interests.
we're tackling Finish What You Start.
Yes.
The Art of Following Through. Taking Action by Peter Hollins. We'll be extracting some actionable insights and exploring those aha moments that can help us all become masters of follow-through. Now, one of the things that struck me right away was this clever analogy the book uses. It breaks down the act of following through as if it were a body.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Right.
A brilliant way to visualize this.
It's so relatable.
Different components.
The book says, focus is like the head. You need a clear vision of what you want to achieve. But then, just like a head needs a strong spine, following through requires self-discipline.
Because without that backbone,
Oh, yeah.
it's easy to get swayed or just give up
Totally.
when things get tough.
And then, of course, you've got action, the hands and feet, so to speak. It's about taking concrete steps, no matter how small, to actually move towards your goal.
Those actions are what transform intentions into tangible progress.
Totally. And then lastly, there's persistence, the heart of it all. That's what keeps you going, despite setbacks. That unwavering commitment to keep pushing forward, even when you hit a roadblock.
It's the fuel that keeps us going when motivation alone isn't enough.
I love how this analogy highlights that you really need all of these pieces working together. So I'm curious, thinking about your own projects and goals, which of these body parts do you feel is your strongest asset?
For me, it's definitely persistence. Once I set my mind to something, I tend to stick with it, even when things get challenging. But I've learned that focusing my energy on the right tasks is equally crucial. Without a clear vision and that initial self-discipline to prioritize persistence can easily turn into stubbornness.
That's such a good point. And the book actually goes on to explore some of the common pitfalls that prevent us from following through, like fear of failure, or that feeling of overwhelm when a project seems too big.
And it also talks about the allure of instant gratification. It's so easy to get sidetracked by things that offer immediate rewards, even if we know they're not ultimately contributing to our long-term goals.
Oh, tell me about it. I can be the queen of procrastination when it comes to tackling those less than thrilling tasks. The book shares this story about a woman named Esther who dreams of opening a bakery, but she's completely paralyzed by all the what-ifs. Like, what if nobody comes?
Right.
What if her recipes flop?
Yeah. Classic example of how fear can just hijack our focus.
Totally. And I think it's something we can all relate to, right? Have you ever had a project you were excited about, but then those doubts crept in and stopped you dead in your tracks?
Absolutely. I think it's a universal experience. But what's fascinating is how the book connects those anxieties back to the anatomy analogy we discussed. When fear takes over, our focus scatters, our self-discipline falters, and taking action feels almost impossible.
It's like a domino effect. One weak link throws off the entire system. So how do we combat that fear and actually get ourselves moving? Well, the book says a big part of it is understanding and harnessing motivation.
And it makes a key distinction between external and internal motivators.
Right.
Like deadlines or potential rewards, which tap into your deeper whys.
Right. So external motivators are those outside forces that push you, while internal motivators are more about connecting with the emotional core of your goal, how achieving this will benefit your life, your family, or even the world around you.
Exactly. And while external motivators can be effective in the short term, tapping into those internal motivators is what creates lasting change. It's about aligning your actions with your values and beliefs.
That's so powerful. And the book even provides some specific questions to help you uncover those deeper motivators, like what positive emotions will you experience by achieving this goal? How will this improve your life in tangible ways? And how will it impact those you care about?
Those are great questions to reflect on because they force you to move beyond superficial desires and connect with the true purpose behind your goals. And once you've tapped into that deeper why, it becomes a lot easier to combat procrastination, which is something the book dives into next. How sometimes your brain seems to have a mind of its own, especially when faced with tasks we'd rather avoid.
Oh, absolutely. It's like there's this invisible force field preventing me from tackling anything that doesn't involve instant gratification. What does the book say about that?
Well, it introduces this fascinating concept called time inconsistency. It's basically the idea that our brains are wired to prioritize immediate rewards over future benefits, even if those future benefits are way more significant.
So it's like choosing to watch another episode of our favorite show instead of going for that run. Even though we know exercise is better for us in the long run, our brains just love that instant gratification.
Exactly. But thankfully, Finish What You Start offers some practical strategies to help us outsmart our own wiring. One that I found particularly helpful is temptation bundling.
Okay, temptation bundling. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
It's about pairing something you genuinely enjoy with a task you typically dread. For example, let's say you love listening to podcasts. Perhaps you're a big fan of bookish dives.
Well, naturally. Who wouldn't be?
Right. But let's say you also really dislike, oh, I don't know, filing paperwork. With temptation bundling, you would make a rule for yourself that you only allow yourself to listen to the latest Bookish Dives episode while you're tackling that mountain of paperwork.
So you're basically using the podcast as a reward to make the less enjoyable task more bearable. I could see how that would be effective. It's like giving yourself a little incentive to power through those dreaded to-dos.
Exactly. And another powerful anti-procrastination tactic the book suggests is breaking tasks down into ridiculously small steps. The smaller the step, the easier it is to overcome that initial inertia and start building momentum.
You know, it's funny. I used to think that breaking down tasks into smaller chunks was just a time management trick. But thinking about it from this perspective of overcoming procrastination makes so much sense. Those smaller steps feel less daunting and way more manageable.
It's all about making that initial hurdle so low that it feels almost effortless to get started. And once you've taken that first step, you're much more likely to keep going.
It's like building a chain reaction
Yeah.
of positive momentum. Small wins lead to bigger wins. Speaking of setting ourselves up for success, the book also talks about the importance of creating what it called a no distraction zone.
Which really highlights the impact our environment can have on our ability to focus and follow through. It's not just about willpower. It's about creating a space that supports our goals.
You know, I used to think that being easily distracted was just a personality flaw. But the book made me realize how much our surroundings actually influence our behavior. Even small distractions can really derail our best intentions.
It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Each distraction might feel insignificant on its own, but they add up over time, chipping away at our focus and draining our mental energy.
And the book mentions this study about a cookie jar that really illustrates this point.
Oh yes, the cookie jar study. Researchers found that people were much more likely to indulge in cookies when the jar was visible and within easy reach, but when it was tucked away, out of sight, people were less tempted. It's like the old saying, out of sight, out of mind.
So it's not just about having willpower. It's about removing those temptations from our environment altogether, or at least making them less accessible.
Exactly. And this ties into the power of what the book calls the default effect. Essentially, we tend to choose the path of least resistance. So if our default is grabbing our phone every few minutes, it's going to be much harder to stay focused on that report we need to write or that project we need to finish.
Okay, so how do we hack this default effect to work in our favor? How do we make those good choices easier and those bad choices less appealing?
It's about consciously designing our environment to support our goals. So if social media is your kryptonite, for example, you might move those tempting apps to a less accessible location on your phone.
Like hiding them away in some obscure folder. I like it.
Or you could even log out after each use. So you have to make a deliberate effort to log back in, make it a conscious choice, rather than a mindless habit.
It's like putting those tempting apps on a timeout. So apart from our digital environment, are there other tweaks we can make to our physical space to boost self-discipline?
Absolutely. Think about your workspace. Is it a haven of peace and productivity or a chaotic mess of clutter?
Oh, you're definitely hitting a nerve there.
Mm-hmm.
My workspace tends to lean towards the organized chaos end of the spectrum. What's the problem with that?
Well, a Cornell University study found that a clean desk can actually lead to a clearer mind. A clutter-free environment helps promote focus and concentration, making it easier to stay disciplined.
So it's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating a space that actually supports our cognitive function.
Oh.
Okay, I'm officially inspired to tackle that mountain of papers on my desk.
And once you've got your environment optimized, Finish What You Start introduces another interesting concept, the don't-do list.
A don't-do list. That sounds counterintuitive. I mean, shouldn't we be focusing on all the things we need to get done, not on things we should avoid?
I know it seems a bit backwards, but it's actually incredibly powerful. Think about it. We're bombarded with distractions and demands on our time every day. It's not enough to just have a to-do list. We need to be strategic about what we consciously choose to not do.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of things belong on this don't-do list? Give me some examples.
The book outlines 3 main categories. First, there are those tasks that are important, but for whatever reason you can't do anything about them right now. Maybe you're waiting on someone else's input, or you need a specific piece of information that's not available yet.
So it's about acknowledging those tasks that are currently out of our control and freeing up our mental space to focus on what we can actually impact.
Exactly. Don't waste precious energy dwelling on things you can't immediately act on. Just jot them down, set a reminder to follow up later, and move on.
Makes sense. What about the second category of don't do's?
These are tasks that, while they might seem important on the surface, don't actually contribute to your main goals. It's often that low-level busy work that we get bogged down in, but that doesn't really move the needle.
Oh yes, the dreaded administrivia of life. I am definitely guilty of getting sucked into those time wasters. So how do we identify and eliminate them?
It's about being ruthlessly honest with yourself, about the true value of each task. Ask yourself, can this be delegated? Can it be automated? Can it be eliminated altogether? Your time and energy are precious resources. Spend them wisely.
So it's about prioritizing those high-impact activities that truly align with our goals and ditching the rest. Okay, I'm ready to get ruthless with my to-do list. What about that third category of thing to banish to the don't-do list?
This one is all about combating perfectionism. We all have those projects that we keep tweaking and refining, striving for that elusive ideal of perfection. But the book reminds us that sometimes done is better than perfect.
Oof, that one is close to home. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten caught up in perfecting some minor detail while bigger, more important tasks get pushed aside. It's a real productivity killer.
The don't-do list is a great tool to help us break free from those perfectionistic tendencies and focus on what truly matters.
Okay, so we've got our no distraction zone and our don't-do list. It's like we're building a fortress of follow-through. But there's still one crucial element missing.
You're right, we've talked about setting the stage for success, but now we need to create systems to help us actually get things done.
Okay, systems. That sounds a bit corporate-y, but I'm willing to bet there's some real wisdom behind that term. What exactly does the book mean by systems?
Think of systems as the ongoing habits and processes that support long-term success. They're different from goals, which are one-time achievements.
So if my goal is to write a novel, for example, my system might include a daily writing routine, the software I use to organize my thoughts, and the strategies I employ to overcome writer's block. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Systems are like the invisible scaffolding that supports our goals. They are the habits that become ingrained in our daily lives, making success not a matter of willpower, but a natural byproduct of how we operate.
It's like setting ourselves up for success on autopilot. Instead of relying on those bursts of motivation, we're creating systems that make those good habits almost inevitable.
Precisely. And the book highlights a few key takeaways for building effective systems. One is to track your progress, even those small wins along the way. It's about acknowledging those milestones, which helps to maintain momentum and reinforce that positive feedback loop.
And that feeling of accomplishment, even from those tiny wins, can be incredibly motivating. It's like proof that we're actually moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Another key element is managing your time realistically. We often underestimate how long tasks will actually take, which sets us up for disappointment and overwhelm. The book encourages us to track our time and become more aware of our own work patterns.
That's such an important point. It's about being honest with ourselves and creating a schedule that aligns with our natural energy levels and productivity peaks.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final takeaway, reducing what the book calls transaction costs.
Okay, transaction cost. That sounds a bit like a business school term. Can you break that down for me?
Think of transaction costs as the effort and energy required to complete a task. The goal is to make good habits easy and bad habits more difficult.
So if I want to make exercising a regular habit, I might reduce the transaction cost by packing my gym bag the night before and putting it right by the door so it's ready to go in the morning.
Perfect example. You've removed a potential barrier and made it that much easier to follow through on your intention.
And if I wanted to break the habit of, say, endlessly scrolling social media, I might increase the transaction cost by logging out of all my accounts after each use. So I have to make a conscious decision to log back in every time.
Exactly. It's about setting up those little nudges and barriers that steer us toward the behaviors we want to cultivate and away from those we want to avoid.
This is all so helpful. It feels like we're going beyond just summarizing the book. We're actually unpacking these concepts and figuring out how to apply them to our own lives.
And that's what's so great about Finish What You Start. It's not just about theory. It's about giving you practical tools to understand your own psychology and design systems that work with your brain, not against it.
This has been such an insightful deep dive so far, but we're not quite done yet. In part 3, we'll explore the specific mindsets that can either make or break our ability to follow through. Get ready for some serious mental rewiring. Welcome back to Bookish Dives. We are in the final stretch of our deep dive into Finish What You Start. We've explored the anatomy of follow-through, uncovered those hidden motivators, and even learned how to tweak our environment to support our goals. But now it's time to tackle the most important element of all, our mindset.
You know, it's amazing how much our thoughts and beliefs can either propel us towards success or completely sabotage our efforts. Finish What You Start dedicates a whole chapter to exploring those mindsets that can make or break our ability to follow through.
It's like those mental blind spots we all have, right? We can have all the strategies and systems in the world, but if our underlying beliefs are working against us, it's an uphill battle. So what are some of those key mindsets the book highlights?
Well, the first one is embracing the idea that what you're doing is truly worthwhile. It seems simple enough, but it's actually a lot more profound than it sounds.
I can see that. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and lose sight of the bigger picture. So how do we cultivate that belief, especially when we're facing setbacks and challenges?
The book draws some interesting insights from research on student motivation. It points out that students who persevere, even when things get tough, share three core beliefs. First, they believe that hard work leads to improvement. Second, they have confidence in their own abilities and feel a sense of belonging. And third, they see the value and relevance of what they're learning.
So it's about connecting with that deeper why behind our efforts, right? Understanding how each step, even those challenging ones, contributes to the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from the immediate discomfort to the long-term rewards. And that actually leads us to the second crucial mindset, becoming comfortable with discomfort.
Ooh, that one sounds a bit daunting. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty good at avoiding discomfort whenever possible.
Well, it's human nature to shy away from things that make us feel uneasy, but the book argues that discomfort is often a sign of growth. It's that feeling we get when we're pushing beyond our comfort zones, trying new things, and expanding our limits.
So instead of seeing discomfort as a signal to stop, we need to reframe it as a sign that we're on the right track. It's about embracing those challenges as opportunities for learning and growth.
Precisely. The more we expose ourselves to discomfort, the more resilient we become. It's like building mental muscles. And that leads nicely into the third mindset the book highlights, approaching every experience as an opportunity to learn.
I love that. It's about shifting our focus from the fear of failure to the excitement of discovery. Instead of asking, what if I mess this up, we should be asking, what can I learn from this experience, regardless of the outcome?
Exactly. It takes the pressure off and transforms every endeavor into a valuable learning opportunity. And that growth mindset, that willingness to experiment and learn from our mistakes, is essential for anyone who wants to achieve those big, audacious goals.
Absolutely. Now, I know we can't talk about achieving goals without addressing the elephant in the room, stress. And the book actually empathizes the importance of managing stress as the fourth key mindset for follow-through.
It's so important to recognize that our mental and emotional state plays a huge role in our ability to get things done. When we're chronically stressed, our willpower and self-control just get depleted, making it that much harder to stay focused and disciplined.
So self-care isn't just a luxury, it's a crucial ingredient for success.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing those activities that help us recharge, whether it's exercise, spending time in nature meditation, or just taking a break from the demands of daily life. It's about investing in our own well-being, which in turn fuels our ability to achieve our goals.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. We need to take care of ourselves so we can show up fully and do our best work.
And I think that's one of the most powerful messages of Finish What You Start. It's not about brute forcing our way to success through sheer willpower. It's about understanding our own psychology, cultivating a supportive mindset, and designing systems that work in harmony with who we are.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves, both in terms of what we achieve and how we navigate the journey along the way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Finish What You Start, I have a question for you. What's one project you're now committing to finishing? What goal has been lingering on your to-do list, waiting for you to unlock the power of follow-through?
That's a great question for all of us to ponder. Choose one project, apply these incredible insights we've explored, and watch yourself become a master of follow-through.
We have every confidence in you. And remember, Finish What You Start by Peter Hollins is packed with even more strategies and advice, so be sure to check it out.
And be sure to subscribe to Bookish Dives for more deep dives into the books that are shaping our thinking and inspiring our lives.
Happy reading, everyone.